Um, I remember it was at the end of 2004, before the tour, the first tour or the rehearsal or anything began. I thought to myself, looking at the tour schedule, I knew we had this massive gap around Easter time in our tour schedule. And I suddenly thought, God, we could possibly take the show to France and come back and finish at the Riverside. And I thought, God, that's amazing. This play, it's all about Jacques Luceron and his activities in France during the Second World War, to take it back to France. And I just got totally kind of mesmerised by this idea and saw the possibility so clearly. I started to ask around contacts of mine about any theatres in France that people might know about that I could approach. But in terms of taking the play to France, still didn't have a venue until the December, I think, when Ollie, who's a guy who was working in the Turtle Key office, his girlfriend's mother, who was the English teacher at the International Lycée in Saint-Germain, said that they had a theatre as part of the school, and if we wanted to, then we could take the play there. And so that was incredible. That was it. We had the first offer of a performance space in France. And rather than thinking of doing it around the Easter during the first tour, I thought it might make more sense for it to happen later on in the year. The reason being is that there is a blind in theatre festival that takes place in Croatia every 2 years, and we were invited to that, and that happens in the October. And then, strangely, I got an invitation from a festival in Versailles. This was in the February of 2005 while we were rehearsing Resistance 1. Asking whether we had any work that we would like to present at their festival, and if we did, then they would pay our travel, the fees for the actors. And I thought, this is amazing. So I told them about the Resistance. They were absolutely, kind of enthusiastic about having it, and their festival was at the beginning of October. So it just seemed to me so possible to be able to create a tour which had this international aspect at the end of September, beginning of October, where I could take the play to Versailles, Saint-Germain and Croatia.
The company walk through a tree-lined avenue in Versailles. Maria walks past some classical statues holding on Eileen's arm. Boats by a canal. The company stand at the bottom of a flight of grand stone steps.
And as the first Resistance tour was developing, there were some venues in England that were saying they were interested in taking the play, and obviously they couldn't be booked into the first tour because that was already established and gone out, the publicity had gone out for it. So I was saying to those venues, well, there could be a possibility of us retouring, but it would be in the early autumn. And so they said, well, if you decide to do that, then get in contact with us. So at the end of the first tour, not only did I feel creatively that the play had a little further to go, we also had these potential venues and some funding to begin with from the festivals that were willing to give us some money towards our fees and things. So immediately the production came to its conclusion at the Riverside. I put in a funding application to Esme Fairburn, who were quite a big funder and supporter of performing arts and touring work. It was on the cusp of them closing their funds to performing arts companies, and I just got the application in. It was going to take about 3 months turnaround before they decided whether they were going to give us the money or not. But I thought you know, we could just about do this if we got that money. We got a little bit more money from the Arts Council with the bit of extra funding that we were getting from the festivals. We could do this. And I was so determined. But I also had on my hands a production crew who were totally hacked off with the first tour in many ways, because it had been very challenging, exhausting, and it had really pushed everybody to the pinnacle of their endurance, really. And to ask them to come back on board with having practically no break, with all the memories of the dark episodes in the first tour, I knew that was going to be a bit of a struggle. So I thought, well, let's wait and see what funding I can raise first and how much I can get in place before I start on this programme of persuasion. So the next big thing for us was the fact that I was booking the tour for the second tour. I was booking all the venues for the second tour in England. We had the French venues and we had the Croatian ones, but we still didn't know whether we had the funding, because the decision hadn't been made by this major funder. They were meant to make the decision at the beginning of July, and then they said they wanted to put the decision back for another month to the beginning of August. And we were meant to start our rehearsals at the end of August, and we couldn't obviously start setting up the project as soon as we knew that we had the funding, because we would have no time. So we had to be telling actors that we were going to be issuing them contracts, auditioning them, booking these venues around the country, sorting out rehearsal venues, etc., still not knowing whether we actually had the funding or not. And it really did get to the 11th hour, the beginning of August, when we'd auditioned the last actor. We knew who our cast were going to be, and we almost just could not bear it any longer. And we had to call this funder, the Esme Fairbairn Trust, and say, what is the decision? And I remember Eileen and I were just like waiting for Ali, the production manager, to come back to tell us what they had said. And we were, you know, well, for me anyway, my heart was in my mouth. And I remember turning my mobile phone on and just getting this answer voicemail that was Ali just screaming and screaming. Yes, we had the money, so thank God for that. We were able to go ahead. And about the production team, it was pretty difficult to having those conversations about, yes, come on, get involved again, let's do this, we can make this, we can turn this around, we can make this a positive experience. After the last tour, that, you know, this is persuading freelancers like Eileen and the Turtle Key kind of company, that if they got involved and they gave up their time and their lives and all the rest of it again, that we would have a better time of it all. And that was quite a difficult job, but eventually they said yes, and I think certainly getting this funding coming through gave them more confidence in the fact that it would, you know, it would be okay. And it was a tall order to kind of put all those memories that were so recent, you know, pack them away and just believe that we could turn this whole thing around and not make it this kind of difficult experience that it had been before.